The deep silence of space was broken by the soft beeping of sensors aboard the patrol ship Stargazer. Commander James Reed looked up from his data pad, his tired eyes scanning the bridge crew's faces. They had been out here for 3 weeks, searching the border of human space for any signs of Empire activity. It was supposed to be a routine patrol, but something felt different today. "Sir, we're picking up strange energy readings," said Tom Wilson, the young sensor officer. His fingers moved quickly across the glowing screen as he tried to make sense of the data. "I've never seen anything like this before." Reed walked over to Tom's station, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The reading on the screen showed a massive energy spike, bigger than anything a normal ship could produce. It reminded him of something he had seen years ago, during the early days of the war. "Send the data to my screen," Reed ordered, walking back to his chair. As the information appeared before him, his eyes went wide. He remembered now. 3 years ago, the RSS Dauntless, one of the most advanced research ships ever built, had disappeared while testing a new type of engine. The energy signature they were seeing now matched the Dauntless's experimental drive perfectly. Reed pressed a button on his chair. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." Red lights started flashing throughout the ship as crew members ran to their posts. If the Empire had found the Dauntless first, they needed to be ready for anything. "Sir, detecting a large debris field ahead," reported Lisa Green from navigation. "But there's something weird about it. The pieces, they're moving in patterns." Reed ordered the ship to move closer, but carefully. 5 other patrol ships followed behind the Stargazer, their weapons ready. As they got nearer to the debris field, everyone on the bridge went quiet. Through the main window, they could see pieces of metal floating in space, but they weren't just drifting. They were swimming through the void like schools of fish. "Get me a closer look at those fragments," Reed commanded. The ship's camera zoomed in on the nearest pieces. They weren't regular debris at all. Each piece was covered in tiny machines that glowed with a faint blue light. As they watched, some of the pieces started joining together, forming larger structures. "Alert!" shouted Tom. "Energy spike dead ahead." The debris field suddenly lit up like a Christmas tree. Thousands of pieces started moving at once, forming a massive shape in space. Reed couldn't believe his eyes. The pieces were creating what looked like a giant version of the Dauntless, but different. This ship was bigger, with strange patterns running across its hull that glowed with the same blue light as the tiny machines. "Sir, we're being hailed," reported Mike Brown, the communications officer. His voice shook a little. "The signal, it's using an old research fleet code. It's the Dauntless." Reed took a deep breath. "Put it on screen." The main screen flickered to life, but instead of showing a person, it showed patterns of light that moved like waves. A voice came through the speakers, but it sounded strange, like many people talking at once. "This is the RSS Dauntless," the voice said. "We have been waiting for you." Reed leaned forward in his chair. "This is Commander James Reed of the Galactic Defense Fleet. Dauntless, you've been missing for 3 years. What happened to you?" The patterns on the screen changed color as the voice spoke again. "We evolved, Commander. The accident with our experimental drive changed us, changed everything. We are more than a ship now. We are something new." As if to prove the point, parts of the huge ship started changing shape. Sections moved and transformed, showing that the entire vessel was made of the same tiny machines they had seen earlier. Reed realized they weren't just looking at a ship anymore. They were looking at a completely new form of life. "Our sensors show Empire ships approaching this sector," the Dauntless said. "They must have detected our energy signature too. We need your help, Commander. We have discovered things out here, learned secrets that could change the course of the war, but we need time to finish our work." Reed looked at his crew. They all waited for his decision. The Empire had been pushing deeper into human space every month, winning battle after battle with their superior numbers. if the Dauntless really had found something that could help turn the tide. "What do you need us to do?" Reed asked. The pattern of lights shifted again. "Help us defend this position for the next 6 hours. We are still gathering strength, still learning to control our new form. Once we are ready, we can show you what we have become." Reed nodded. "All ships, battle formation Delta. Whatever's coming, we're going to give the Dauntless the time it needs." The patrol ships moved into position around the transformed research vessel, their weapons charged and ready. They didn't have to wait long. Within minutes, the first Empire ships appeared out of warp. 3 massive battle cruisers, each one big enough to carry thousands of troops. Reed's 6 patrol ships looked tiny in comparison. "Empire vessels approaching weapons range," Tom reported. His voice was steady now, focused on the job at hand. "They're charging weapons. Hold position," Reed ordered. "Let them make the first move." The Empire ships spread out in a classic attack formation. They probably thought this would be an easy fight. 6 small patrol ships against 3 battle cruisers. The math was simple, but they didn't know about the Dauntless. The first shots came from the Empire ships, bright beams of energy slicing through space. Reed's ships returned fire, their smaller weapons doing little damage against the cruiser's strong shields. But they weren't trying to win. They just needed to buy time. Behind them, the Dauntless continued to change. Its surface rippled like water as more and more pieces joined its structure. The blue glow grew brighter, and strange new weapons began to form along its hull. "Commander," the many-voiced being that was now the Dauntless called, "you should move your ships back. We are ready to show you what we have learned." Reed didn't hesitate. "All ships, fall back. Give them room." As the patrol ships moved away, the Dauntless began to move. But it didn't move like a normal ship. Instead, it seemed to flow through space, its entire form shifting and changing as it approached the Empire cruisers. The enemy ships tried to target it, but their weapons passed right through gaps that opened in the Dauntless's body. Then the Dauntless attacked. Streams of those tiny machines poured out from its hull, surrounding the nearest Empire ship. Where they touched the cruiser's hull, the metal began to change color, being transformed into more of the same machines. The Empire ship tried to escape, but it was too late. Within minutes, it had been completely absorbed into the Dauntless's mass. The other 2 cruisers turned to run, but the Dauntless was faster now. Much faster. It caught them both, its swarm of machines taking them apart piece by piece and adding their material to itself. In less than 10 minutes, all 3 Empire ships were gone. Reed stared at the main screen, his mouth open in shock. The Dauntless was now almost twice as big as before, its surface rippling with power from the absorbed ships. "Now you understand, Commander," the Dauntless said. "We are no longer just a ship. We are the future, and we are ready to help humanity fight back." Reed looked at his crew. They all wore the same expression, a mixture of awe and hope. For the first time since the war began, they had seen something that could actually stand up to the Empire's massive fleets. The ship that had disappeared hadn't just come back. It had returned as something that could change everything. "Dauntless," Reed said, "I think it's time we told Fleet Command about you. They're going to want to hear this story." The patterns of light on the screen swirled faster. "Yes, Commander. It's time to share what we have become." The Empire thought they could defeat humanity by having bigger ships and more weapons. "We will show them that humanity's greatest strength is its ability to adapt, to change, to become something new." "The war is about to change, Commander Reed. Everything is about to change." Dr. Anna Thompson stood in what used to be the main lab of the Dauntless, though it looked nothing like it had 3 years ago. The walls seemed to breathe, covered in flowing patterns of tiny machines that pulsed with soft blue light. She reached out to touch one of the walls, watching as the machines moved around her hand like water. The accident that had changed everything happened during a routine test of the new warp drive. Thompson remembered that day clearly. The strange readings from the engine core, the sudden surge of energy, and then the feeling of being torn apart and put back together. When she woke up, she wasn't just herself anymore. She was part of something bigger. "Doctor, the human fleet ships are requesting more information," said Will Cooper, one of her fellow survivors. Like her, he wasn't quite human anymore. His body looked normal, but tiny machines moved under his skin, connecting him to the ship's systems. All 37 surviving crew members were the same way now. Thompson nodded, walking over to what used to be a regular computer terminal. Now it was a living interface, responding to her thoughts as much as her touch. "Show me their questions," she said. The screen filled with text as the ship's consciousness shared the information with her mind. The fleet wanted to know how they had survived, how they had changed, what they could do. They were both excited and scared by what they had seen the Dauntless do to those Empire ships. Thompson understood their fear. She had been scared too, at first. "Start recording," she said, and began to explain. "The accident merged our experimental warp drive with the ship's AI system, but it did more than that. The energy release changed the basic structure of everything on board: metal, plastic, even organic matter. It turned everything into these self-replicating machines, these nanites, and we changed with it." She paused, remembering those first confused days. "We thought we were dead at first. But then we started to feel the ship around us. We could control the nanites with our thoughts. The ship's AI merged with our minds, connecting us all together. We became something new, not just human, not just machine, but both." As she spoke, the room around her shifted and changed, showing images of what she was describing. The walls formed 3D pictures of the transformation process, of the nanites at work, of the crew learning to control their new abilities. The Dauntless wasn't just a ship anymore. It was alive, and they were all part of its nervous system. "Over the past 3 years, we've been learning, growing, evolving," Thompson continued. "The nanites can break down almost any material and rebuild it, adding it to our mass. Every piece of space debris we absorbed taught us something new. Every asteroid we consumed made us stronger. We stayed hidden, watching the war from a distance, until we were ready." The recording paused as Cooper called out, "Doctor, we're detecting more Empire ships entering the sector. A lot more." Thompson walked to the main viewing area, which formed around her like a bubble of clear material. In the distance, she could see the Empire ships appearing. Not just 3 this time, but 30. They must have called for backup after losing those first ships. "They want to see what we can really do," Thompson said. She could feel the excitement running through the ship's systems, shared by all the crew members. "Let's show them." The Dauntless began to move, but not as a single unit. Instead, it split apart into dozens of smaller sections, each one controlled by a different crew member's consciousness. The Empire ships opened fire, but their weapons couldn't lock onto the constantly shifting targets. Thompson directed her section of the ship toward the nearest Empire vessel, feeling the thrill of movement through space. The nanites responded to her thoughts, forming new shapes and structures as needed. Other sections of the Dauntless moved with her, controlled by her fellow crew members, all of them connected through the ship's shared consciousness. "Remember," she sent through their mental link, "we're not just fighting. We're learning. Everything they throw at us makes us stronger." The Empire ships tried new tactics, launching fighters and missiles, attempting to overwhelm them with numbers. But each weapon, each piece of technology they used, just gave the Dauntless more patterns to learn from, more materials to absorb, more ways to evolve. Thompson watched through 1,000 different sensors as her crew worked together. John Baker, who used to be an engineer, had figured out how to turn the Empire's own shields against them, using the nanites to slip through the tiny gaps in their energy fields. Mary Roberts, once their weapons officer, had developed a way to redirect enemy fire back at their ships. The battle looked like a dance, with pieces of the Dauntless flowing around the Empire ships like schools of fish swimming through the ocean. Wherever the nanites touched enemy hull plating, The metal began to change, becoming part of their collective. Some Empire ships tried to self-destruct rather than be absorbed, but even their explosions just gave the Dauntless more energy to use. "Doctor," Cooper called out, his voice excited. "Look at what we just absorbed from their command ship." Thompson connected to the ship's database, and new information flowed into her mind. The Empire ships had been carrying data about their newest weapons, their battle plans, their secret research. As the Dauntless absorbed their computers, it learned everything they knew. "They're trying to build their own version of us," Thompson said, scanning through the stolen data. "They found traces of our energy signature and have been trying to recreate the accident that changed us. But they don't understand. They can't just copy what happened. We're not just a weapon or a piece of technology. We're something that evolved naturally, even if the evolution happened quickly." The last Empire ship vanished into the growing mass of the Dauntless. They were even bigger now, their understanding of technology and space and energy growing with every passing moment. Thompson could feel new ideas forming in the shared consciousness of ship and crew, new possibilities opening up. "Send a message to the human fleet," she said. Tell them we're ready to explain everything. But they need to understand, we're not just a super weapon they can point at the enemy. We're the next step in human evolution, a bridge between flesh and machine. And we have so much to teach them." As she spoke, the Dauntless reformed itself into a single unit, but different from before. Its shape now reflected everything they had learned in the battle, more efficient, more powerful. The hull rippled with patterns of light as the nanites processed all the new information they had absorbed. Thompson looked out at the stars, feeling the presence of her crew around her, all of them connected through the living network of the ship. They had lost their old lives in that accident 3 years ago, but they had gained something incredible. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were pioneers, exploring what it meant to be human in an age of endless possibilities. The human fleet ships approached cautiously, their sensors trying to make sense of what the Dauntless had become. Thompson smiled, knowing that everything was about to change. The Empire thought they were fighting a war of ships and weapons, but they had accidentally started something much bigger, the next step in the evolution of life itself. "Prepare the main lab for visitors," she told the ship's consciousness. "It's time to share what we've learned. And it's time to show humanity that there's more than one way to win a war. Sometimes the best victory isn't destroying your enemy. It's becoming something they never imagined possible." The Empire's Grand Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror, watching as his invasion fleet gathered. 500 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled, waited for his command. The humans had somehow developed a powerful new weapon, but he was certain that sheer numbers would overwhelm whatever tricks they had discovered. "All ships report ready," Admiral, his second-in-command, reported. "The humans have only minimal defenses along their border. They don't know we're coming." The Admiral smiled. The Empire had spent months planning this attack. They would strike 3 human worlds at once, too many targets for their mysterious new weapon to defend. Victory was certain. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Send in the first wave." 200 ships jumped into warp, heading for the human colonies. The Admiral watched them go, already imagining his triumph. But as the ships reached their targets, something strange happened. The sensor readings made no sense. Energy patterns appeared from nowhere, spreading through space like ripples in a pond. "Admiral," his sensor officer shouted, "something's wrong with the first wave. Their signals, they're changing." The Admiral rushed to the sensor display. The dots representing his ships were transforming, their energy signatures shifting to match something else. Something familiar. His blood ran cold as he realized what he was seeing. The Dauntless had been waiting for them. Out in space, the Empire ships found themselves surrounded. The debris fields they had dismissed as space junk came alive, revealing themselves as parts of the transformed research vessel. But the Dauntless wasn't alone anymore. In the months since its return, it had been teaching others. 3 more ships like the Dauntless emerged from hiding, former human vessels that had volunteered to undergo the same transformation. Their crews had merged with their ships, becoming new hybrid life forms. They moved through space like living creatures, their nanite bodies flowing around the Empire vessels. The Admiral watched in horror as his ships were absorbed one by one, their crews and technology becoming part of the growing swarm. Each lost ship made the human vessels stronger, smarter, more adaptable. The second wave of Empire ships jumped in to help, but they only provided more material for the transformation. "Pull back," the Admiral ordered. "All ships, retreat." But it was too late. The hybrid ships had learned from every battle, every encounter. They knew exactly how to counter Empire tactics. The Dauntless led the attack on the Conqueror, its surface rippling with stolen energy. Empire weapons fire passed harmlessly through gaps that opened in its structure. Fighters launched from the flagship's bays, but the nanites simply absorbed them, adding their pilots' knowledge to the collective consciousness. Inside the Dauntless, the crew worked as one mind. They had learned to split their attention between thousands of tasks, each person controlling millions of nanites while staying connected to the whole. As they approached the flagship, they could sense the fear of the Empire crews, their desperation as they realized their weapons were useless. "Your weapons can't hurt us," the Dauntless broadcast on all frequencies, its message a blend of many voices speaking as one. "Your shields can't stop us. Everything you throw at us only makes us stronger. But you don't have to fight. You don't have to die. You can join us." Some Empire crews chose to surrender, fascinated by what the humans had become. Others fought to the end, their ships torn apart and rebuilt into new forms. The Admiral watched his mighty fleet disappear piece by piece, transformed into something beyond his understanding. "How?" he demanded, pounding his fist on the command console. "How did they do this? How did they create such power?" The answer came as the nanites began seeping through the flagship's hull, turning metal and plastic into flowing rivers of tiny machines. The Dauntless's consciousness touched the minds of the Empire crew, showing them the truth. "We didn't create this power," the many voices explained. "We discovered it. The accident that changed us wasn't a weapon design. It was evolution taking the new path. We are what happens when humanity stops trying to build bigger guns and starts learning to change itself." The Admiral felt the nanites touching his skin, offering him a choice. He could join them, become part of something greater, or he could die with his ship. Around him, crew members made their own choices. Some embraced the change, their bodies dissolving into the nanite swarm. Others fought, but their resistance was futile. In orbit around the human colonies, the battle was already over. The Empire's massive invasion fleet had been completely absorbed, its technology and knowledge added to the growing power of the hybrid ships. But the Dauntless and its companions weren't interested in just winning battles. "Look at what we can build," they told the surrendered Empire crews, using their combined technology to create new structures in space. Space stations formed from clouds of nanites, able to repair and upgrade themselves. Defensive systems that could think and adapt. Power sources that drew energy from the fabric of space itself. The Admiral watched in amazement as his flagship was transformed around him. The rigid metal walls became flowing surfaces of light and energy. His crew, those who had accepted the change, began to understand their new existence. They weren't just defeated enemies anymore. They were becoming part of a new form of life. "Your Empire thought the only way to grow stronger was to conquer others," the Dauntless explained. "But true strength comes from adaptation, from evolution, from learning to become something new. This isn't the end of your civilization. It's the beginning of something greater." As news of the failed invasion spread, more Empire ships arrived, not to fight, but to learn. The hybrid ships shared their knowledge freely, teaching others how to make the transformation. What had started as an accident aboard one research vessel was becoming a revolution that would change both civilizations forever. The Admiral, his pride finally broken, asked the question that burned in his mind. "What will happen to us now? What will we become?" The answer came not in words, but in visions shared through the nanite network. He saw futures where human and empire technology merged into new forms, where the boundary between living and machine became meaningless, where consciousness could flow between stars like light. "We will become what we choose to become," the Dauntless told him. The war between our peoples was about controlling territory, resources, technology. But we found something better than control. We found transformation. Every battle makes us smarter, every encounter teaches us something new, and every person who joins us brings new ideas and possibilities. The last pieces of the Conqueror dissolved into the nanite swarm, its energy and materials rebuilt into new forms. The Admiral felt his own consciousness expanding, connecting to the vast network of minds that now flowed through space. He understood at last. The Empire hadn't lost a war today. Instead, both humanity and the Empire had won something far greater: the power to evolve beyond their limitations. In the space where a battle fleet had once gathered, something new now grew. Not weapons, not ships, but the seeds of a civilization that would reshape the galaxy. The Dauntless led the way, but it was only the beginning. The real revolution was just starting, and it would change everything. General Robert Wilson paced back and forth in the main conference room of Earth Defense Command. The walls were covered with screens showing the spread of the Dauntless effect across space. More and more ships were choosing to transform, both human and Empire vessels. The war was ending, but not in any way anyone had expected. What happens when everyone has this power? He asked the hologram floating above the conference table. The image showed Dr. Thompson's face, though it wasn't quite human anymore. Patterns of light moved across her skin, showing her connection to the nanite network. "That's what we're trying to figure out," Thompson replied. Her voice echoed slightly, as if many people were speaking just slightly out of sync. "We've discovered something that could unite both our civilizations, but it could also tear them apart if we're not careful." The general stopped pacing and leaned on the table. "The Empire is asking for peace talks. They say they want to discuss cooperation in studying this transformation process. Can we trust them?" Thompson's image flickered as she considered the question. The Dauntless had absorbed enough Empire ships and crew to understand how their leaders thought. "They're scared," she said finally. "Not just of us, but of falling behind. They see their crews choosing to join us, and they know they can't stop it. They want to control the process, guide it." "And what do you want?" Wilson asked. He had known Thompson for years before the accident that changed her. She had been brilliant but cautious, always worried about the effects of new technology. Now she was that new technology, and he couldn't read her like he used to. The hologram shifted, showing not just Thompson but the entire transformed crew of the Dauntless. They stood together, their bodies glowing with internal light, connected by streams of flowing nanites. "We want to understand what we've become," they said together. "We're not just weapons. We're not just ships. We're something new, and we need time to learn what that means." Outside the conference room windows, Earth hung like a blue jewel in space. Defense platforms orbited the planet, some of them already showing signs of transformation as their crews volunteered to join the evolution. The change wasn't forced. That was one rule Thompson and her crew had insisted on. Each person had to choose to become part of the network. "The politicians are worried," Wilson said, turning back to the hologram. "Some of them think we should try to contain this, limit who can transform and when. Others want to speed it up, turn our whole fleet into copies of the Dauntless right away. Everyone wants to control it." The hologram showed scenes from recent events: Empire ships surrendering, crews choosing transformation, new hybrid vessels taking shape in space. "Control is an illusion," Thompson's voice said softly. "We're not creating a weapon or a tool. We're watching the next step in evolution. You can't control evolution. You can only learn to work with it." Wilson watched as one of the defense platforms outside began to change, its surface flowing like liquid metal as its crew joined the network. "What about the people who don't want to change? What happens to them?" They live their lives as they choose, Thompson replied. We're not here to force anyone, but they need to understand the galaxy is changing. The old ways of thinking about ships and crews, about weapons and wars, about life itself, those ways are becoming outdated. A junior officer rushed into the conference room, holding a datapad. Sir, we're getting reports from the outer colonies. Empire diplomatic ships are arriving, but they're not like anything we've seen before. They're growing their own docking ports to match our stations. Wilson looked at Thompson's hologram. Your influence. The image smiled. We shared some ideas with them. They're learning that adaptation is better than conquest. Their diplomats are coming with open minds, ready to discuss a future neither of us could have imagined a few months ago. The general sat down heavily in his chair. The war room that had directed humanity's defense for so long was starting to feel like a relic of the past. So what do we do now? How do we handle this transition? Thompson's hologram walked around the table, leaving trails of light in the air. We learn. We explore. We figure out what it means to be human when the line between biology and technology, between individual and collective, becomes fluid. The Empire's diplomats aren't coming to negotiate boundaries anymore. They're coming to discuss possibilities. More reports started flowing in from across human space. Ships were changing, stations were evolving, and with each transformation, the network of minds grew stronger and smarter. But it wasn't just about power anymore. Each new consciousness that joined brought new ideas, new perspectives, new ways of seeing the universe. There are risks, Thompson admitted. We're changing what it means to be human, to be alive. Some will resist. Some will try to use this power for their own ends. That's why we need time, need understanding. We need to learn how to guide this evolution without controlling it, how to grow without losing what makes us who we are. Wilson stood and walked to the window, watching Earth turn below. How do we protect ourselves if this goes wrong? What if some of the transformed ships decide to become conquerors? The hologram filled with stars, showing the growing network of transformed ships and stations spreading through space. The network itself is the protection, Thompson explained. No single consciousness can dominate it. We learn from each other, balance each other. The Empire crews who joined us brought their knowledge of conquest and control, and learned why those things are limitations, not strengths. A message flashed on the main screen. The Empire diplomats would arrive within the hour. But they weren't coming to discuss borders or treaties. They wanted to talk about joining the transformation project, about working together to understand and guide this new form of existence. It's time to choose, Thompson said, her hologram returning to a single figure. Not just as individuals, but as civilizations. Do we embrace this change, learn to work with it, or do we try to fight it, to control it, to limit it? Because one thing is certain, we can't go back. The universe has shown us a new path, and we have to decide how to walk it. Wilson looked at the reports flowing in from across space, at the Empire ships approaching with new ideas instead of weapons, at the defense platforms outside slowly transforming into something new and wonderful. He thought about all the lives lost in the war, all the battles fought over things that suddenly seemed small and unimportant. Maybe, he said slowly, the choice isn't between controlling it or fighting it. Maybe the choice is learning to trust. Trust in evolution, in adaptation, in the idea that becoming something new doesn't mean losing who we are. Thompson's hologram smiled, and for a moment she looked almost human again. That's exactly what we've been trying to learn out here among the stars. We're not just ships anymore, not just crews, not just weapons or tools. We're the next step in the story of life itself. And the story is just beginning. 10 years had passed since the Dauntless first reappeared in human space. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. Where there were once military borders and contested zones, now there were flowing rivers of nanite ships, carrying knowledge and consciousness between the stars. The space station Freedom Point hung in orbit around a neutral world, its surface constantly shifting and changing as it adapted to the needs of its visitors. Both human and Empire ships docked there, some still in their original forms, others transformed into hybrid vessels that seemed to swim through space like silverfish. Inside the station's main gathering space, Dr. Thompson walked among the crowds. Her body still looked mostly human, though patterns of light still flowed beneath her skin. She had chosen to keep this form to help others understand the transformation, to show them that changing didn't mean losing yourself. "The latest survey results are in," said Michael Chen, one of her original crew members. Like her, he had maintained a mostly human appearance. About 30% of both human and Empire populations have chosen to join the network in some way. The rest are watching, waiting, learning. Thompson nodded, watching the mixture of people around them. Some were fully transformed, their bodies made entirely of flowing nanites. Others wore simple neural interfaces that let them connect to the network while keeping their original forms. And many remained completely unchanged, choosing to interact with the new civilization in traditional ways. "They're finding their own balance," she said. "That's what we hoped for. Not everyone transforming at once, but each person and each community choosing their own path, their own speed of change." The station's walls shifted, creating a new meeting space as a group of Empire scientists arrived. They had come to share their latest research on combining traditional Empire technology with the nanite systems. Their ships weren't fully transformed, but they had learned to grow and adapt in their own unique ways. "Remember when they wanted to turn this into a weapon?" Chen asked, smiling at the memory. "Now they're using it to build hospitals that can heal any injury, ships that can explore deep space without endangering their crews, stations that can grow food from stellar energy." Thompson walked to a viewing window, watching the traffic flow around the station. Each ship was different now. Some were traditional designs, some were fully transformed like the Dauntless, and many were somewhere in between. The rigid divisions between human and machine, between individual and collective, had become fluid. "We're getting signals from the exploration fleet," Chen said, his eyes glowing as he connected to the station's communication network. "They found something interesting in the galactic core." The station created a display in the air, showing the fleet's discovery. A massive structure floated in space, ancient beyond imagining, made of technology that looked surprisingly like their own nanites. The exploration fleet, a mix of transformed and traditional ships working together, had found evidence that they weren't the first civilization to discover this path. "Life finds a way to grow, to change, to become more than it was," Thompson said, studying the ancient structure. "Maybe this is a natural progression. Maybe every civilization eventually discovers that the boundaries they built around themselves are just limitations waiting to be overcome." Around them, the station hummed with activity. In one area, human children played with Empire young, their neural interfaces letting them share thoughts and feelings directly. In another, scientists from both civilizations worked together, using the nanite network to run complex simulations of stellar phenomena. "The network spans half the galaxy now," Chen reported. "But it's not just about distance. It's about depth, about understanding. Each person who joins brings new ideas, new ways of thinking. We're not just sharing technology. We're sharing perspectives, cultures, dreams." A group of unmodified humans walked past, tourists from Earth coming to see the new civilization that was growing among the stars. They looked nervous but curious, watching the transformed beings around them with wonder instead of fear. That was a change too. People were learning that different didn't mean dangerous. "The Empire's central worlds have opened their universities to human students," Thompson said, accessing the latest news through her connection to the network. "And Earth's governments are welcoming Empire families who want to study our history, our art, our ways of thinking. We're not just changing physically, we're growing together as peoples." Outside, a newly transformed ship was taking shape, its crew having just completed their joining with the nanite network. The process was smoother now, more controlled. They understood how to help people adapt, how to preserve what made them unique while connecting them to something larger. "There's a message from the deep space probes," Chen said suddenly. They've detected signals from other galaxies, similar patterns to our technology. We might not be alone in discovering this path." Thompson smiled, remembering how it all started. A simple accident during a weapons test that had opened the door to something far greater. "Send a response," she said. "Let them know they're not alone either. The universe is full of life looking for ways to grow, to connect, to become more than it is." The station's walls shifted again, creating a huge observatory dome. The gathered crowds, both transformed and traditional, watched as the stars wheeled overhead. Among them were the children of transformed parents, born with the ability to connect to the network naturally. They were the next step, a generation that would never know the old divisions between flesh and machine, between self and other. "The Dauntless is returning," Chen announced. The original ship, now vastly changed from its first transformation, emerged from deep space. It had been exploring the edges of known space, learning and growing. Its surface rippled with new patterns, new technologies discovered in the dark between stars. "What did you find out there?" Thompson asked through the network. The answer came not in words, but in images, emotions, ideas. The ship had discovered wonders beyond imagination. But more importantly, it had found new ways of thinking about existence itself. The station created a new space, a gathering place where everyone, transformed and traditional alike, could share in the Dauntless's discoveries. As the ship shared its experiences, Thompson looked around at what they had built. Not an empire, not a weapon, but a new way of living. "We made the right choice," she said to Chen. "When we decided not to use this as just a weapon, when we chose to share it, to let it grow naturally. We're not just surviving anymore. We're becoming something wonderful." Above them, the station's surface rippled like waves on an ocean. Ships came and went, each one carrying the story of transformation to new worlds. The children played, the scientists worked, and the boundaries between different forms of life grew ever more fluid. "What do you think we'll become?" Chen asked, watching a group of newly transformed beings learning to control their nanite bodies. Thompson looked out at the stars, feeling the vast network of minds stretching across space. "Something new," she said. "Something that remembers what it means to be human, or empire, or anything else, but isn't limited by those memories. We'll become what we choose to become, all of us together." The Dauntless pulsed with light, sharing one last discovery from deep space. It had found traces of even more advanced civilizations, signs that the path they were walking led to even greater transformations. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities they were only beginning to understand. "The evolution never stops," Thompson said, smiling as she watched the next generation play among the stars. "We just learn to guide it, to grow with it, to become part of something larger than ourselves. And that's the greatest discovery of all."